Welcome back to Exponential Finance, the podcast covering finance, technology and innovation, from our home in Japan and beyond. In this episode, we explore the Latin American fintech ecosystem through the lens of Uala, a fintech app focused on driving financial inclusion. Founded in 2017 in Argentina, Uala started as a payment wallet, and has just obtained a banking license in its home market. Uala expanded to Mexico in 2020, where it is also currently in the process of acquiring a bank, and to Colombia in 2022, where it applied for a banking license organically. And now, please welcome Mariana Franza, Chief Operating Officer at Uala.
Welcome to the show, Mariana. Very good to see you again. It's been 10 plus years since we worked together on the Brazil business for Goldman Sachs, and we've got some interesting stories to share now with one of the most exciting fintech startups in South America. So thanks very much for joining us today and sharing your story.
Well, thank you very much, Norbert. It's a pleasure to actually speak to you again after our journey at Goldman and in Brazil, which was a very interesting one. We learned a lot, and I think it was a good base for where my career took me and where I'm right now.
So when people think about fintech in South America, for a long time, Brazil has taken lots of the spotlight, and part of that was always New Bank, which was preparing for their IPO last year, at a time when Huala had also a massive fundraising. So you raised at a 2 billion plus valuation. And I think everybody turned their heads and said, oh, South America is much more than Brazil, of course, and we need to pay some attention to Argentina as well. If you can simply share a bit about the company and your role there and how you got into the startup world as well.
Yes, I will. Thank you. So Uala, we started in Argentina. It's a ecosystem, a financial ecosystem that facilitates financial inclusion. It makes it really easy for people to manage their money, right? We started in 2017, and now almost 5 years later, we have 4.5 million users in 3 different countries. 5 years ago, we started with an international prepaid MasterCard, which you could use to subscribe to Netflix, for example, or you could, subscribe to gaming platforms. We have a huge gaming community. You can pay for public transportation, for utilities, or just do normal purchases, right? 5 years later, as I said, we have not only a prepaid card in Argentina, but we also have the same service or the same product in Mexico, the same product in Colombia. And we've added services into this ecosystem, this financial ecosystem that includes insurance, for example. So we also provide insurance. You can have insurance for, like pet insurance. You can have travel insurance. Those are some of the most popular ones in our platform. We also have a solution for small businesses for point of sales. So we can provide a point of sale device to small businesses so they can charge their services and their products. Also QR codes or a payment link that they can use over WhatsApp, etc. So we also provide that. We have investment capabilities. So if you've saved some of the money through our wallet and you have money saved in our wallet and you can now invest it in certain type of securities. And finally, we have also a lending facility, right? So we do buy now and pay later, as well as just normal lending, get a loan for small amounts in order to buy, certain things. So 5 years later, we feel that we're still growing, and we have lots more things cooking and developing, but we're very happy of becoming the leading financial ecosystem with a slew of products in Latin America.
And the origin story, is the market in Argentina very similar to what we maybe know about Brazil in that it's a very young population, there's still a large unbanked part of the population, but at the same time also a very high mobile phone penetration, and taking those ingredients together, that makes basically for a company like Huala to step into that void and provide these services to that unbanked population. Is that out of the 4.5 million customers, would you say there's a large part that comes out of that part of society?
Yes, the whole Latin America has around, 650 million of population, right? With 25% of that population is what we consider young, right? Under 30 years old. It has a penetration of smartphones, I would say anywhere between 70 and 75% collectively. However, what it also has is around 50% unbanked. either underbanked or completely unbanked. And that makes it a great combination to provide financial inclusion. We have been able to provide to new users who never had a bank account before, never had a loan before, never had a card before for the very first time. 65% of our active users never had a credit history before having a card with Uala, not having a wallet with Uala. This is exactly what we mean by financial inclusion. When traditional banking is not making it easy for you to onboard, to understand what's behind having an account, when it makes it expensive to have an account because of the charges, then you're not incentivized to actually have an account or be included. And our worst enemy is cash. Circulating cash is what doesn't allow, among other factors, an economy to develop. Helping out people who are used to manage cash because they had no other way to do it, because it was more expensive and more difficult and more burdensome to do it, traditional banking, we're allowing them to onboard in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. In less than a day, you have your account open. And in less than a day, you can actually have money in your account that you've now digitalized. And now you can do purchasing and you can subscribe to Netflix, which might seem basic. But Netflix requires either a credit card or a debit card. And if you're not in traditional banking, then you can't have Netflix. Something simple as that. So a lot of people who before were not able to subscribe to something like Spotify or something like that because they weren't able to access traditional banking, now they can. And that actually creates a credit history. So to your original question, yes, Latin America has a huge population of unbanked compared to other developed countries. 50%, some more, some less. But I would say average 50% of 650 million people. That's a huge amount of people that we could provide financial opportunities for every stage of their life. For their first job, have an account. Even if they have their first job, they're providing, consulting services or any type of selling their first product, the food truck. They can charge with our point of sale solution, and all of a sudden they're financially included. And that will lead them to tomorrow get a loan to buy a better truck, or to buy their next cart, or to get more raw material for the next product that they have to develop, which before they weren't able to do. That is something that we are very proud of.
There was one thing that I saw that really resonated with me, because it was similar to what we have in Japan as well, although we're banked, but I think the procedure is the same. And there was these payments for e-commerce by printing a voucher and taking it to a convenience store. Basically, it was Rappi Pago.
Yes.
And a couple of other services. This used to be here as well. You get your electricity bill and you're going with it to the convenience store and then paying it in cash. That's changing here slowly, but it's a very cash-based society. So it's a long way of saying, well, there was e-commerce already, and because people didn't have the payment methods and the access to credit cards, etc., that was the method of printing the voucher and taking it to the convenience store for participating in e-commerce. People were doing these transactions, and of course, with the app and the MasterCard behind it, it's a much more convenient way to participate in e-commerce in the way e-commerce was thought of as well.
So yes, we do have cash and points. People can go to a convenience store. You mentioned one that we do in Argentina, Rappi Pago is one of them, for example. And in other places, you have other convenience stores that you can go to. And that's the way that you get your physical cash into the card. We literally in 2021, we digitalized $1 billion in Argentina. And you would say, well, that's not a lot. No, that's a lot in Argentina. Why is that? Because 97% of that money that used to be cash will remain in the system. They're not going to take it out. With that, $1 billion that from cash became digital, now this is what you do. This is what you use to go to the supermarket and pay, right? Or again, pay for your streaming services or your gaming services or for your public transportation or utilities. And when it stays in the digital world, it's better for the economy and it's better for your credit history. And even if it's not cash, if you want to transfer from your local bank to Uala because we have better fees or no fees, for matter of fact, then we also accept digital transfers as well as cash-ins. And this way, we keep the money in the digital world, which is better, again, for financial inclusion, for an economy, and for credit history.
How does the lending work in the environment that is a bit stressed, to say the least, at the moment? So the inflation rate is high. What was the impact for a company like yours?
specifically of Argentina, it hasn't been a country that was prone to lending, right? Because of inflation, because of high interest rates. However, slowly people are understanding that this is the way to grow. We know that with an easy way to apply for a loan, with rates that make it feasible for somebody to pay back, again, you're including people. When you have impossible rates to pay from a financial institution, and that it also makes it super hard for you to apply for all the paperwork because you need years of credit history, then you're not incentivized to use a loan and you're using your own cash and your own money, which really doesn't make sense. Good financial sense says that you have to be leveraged in order to grow. We make it easy for people to first to understand, because we do financial education as well. We have a whole channel called Uala, which is a play in words about classroom in what with Huala or something like that, right? I mean, it's just in Spanish, it kind of makes sense, the play on words. In this space, in this classroom with Huala, we have blogs and we have videos that teach people what's a loan. It teaches people what is an interest rate and, what does it mean if you're going to get $100? How much are you going to pay at what point in time? And how does that help you? People don't want to access lending facilities because they're scared, because they don't know what it's about. You get these booklets out of financial institutions with 50 pages with small print, and you don't know where to start or where to end. And, and of course you understand probably a quarter of it. So why would that incentivize anybody to take a loan? So we're making it easy. We're making it that through an app, in 10 minutes, you can apply for a loan and get it and understand how much you're going to pay every month. Yes. Is inflation high in Argentina? Yes. Is inflation high in the world at this point? Yes, absolutely. So you have to make it easy for people to understand what the rate means for them and what they can do with that money that will help them grow their businesses or pay for something that before that they couldn't pay, understand how a cash flow works, understand how a budget works. That makes them less scared to be financially included. We have a lending facility that has been working very, very well. It grew in a year 24 times. And we're going to keep growing, which is great. We know that a lot of the people that we take as users never had a card before. So we're also willing to take that risk for people. And we've noticed that people who haven't been financially included before when taking a loan are way more responsible than those that have been included financially for many, many years. They're more prone to actually pay their loans because they know the value of that loan in their financial life.
Spoke to some fintech experts about new, and also would you go into Argentina and they say like, no, this Uala is already there. So that is taken. It's way too hard. So we rather go into Mexico and Colombia, which you've done as well. So these places seem to be crowded. But do you see competition domestically? Are there other fintechs? Is there an ecosystem brewing that then also helps you at the end? Because it's all part, as you described, of financial inclusion. And the more people help educate and the more common these products become, right, it should be good for everybody. The pie is getting bigger. The domestic competition, do you see foreign fintechs looking at Argentina as well?
We welcome competition. Competition makes us better. We don't want to have the monopoly. We want to be the best, but we want the competition also to help us in financial inclusion, but help us also become the best. When other fintechs come to Argentina or come to Mexico or come to Colombia, we're happy about it. ICBC, I think the Chinese bank, just launched in Argentina their digital wallet. We're happy that they're doing that. That basically means that you're helping people manage your finances in a better way, that they don't actually have to go to a branch to do certain things, that they can do it out of their smartphone. We encourage that, and we encourage other fintechs that come to Argentina or Mexico or Colombia. Mercado Libre, which is like the Amazon of Latin America. They're in Mexico as well and many other countries, and we're happy that they're there. We partner with them in many senses of how do we make the digital world better? How do we make life easier for users? Sometimes we do partnerships, right, between, for example, Rappi and us about discounts. So we both win in this game of users. This is about having open banking and open finances where we can share information that will help users have a better, more transparent, more integrated financial life.
From a customer acquisition perspective, what's been remarkable, I think, for some of these stories is because, as you describe, it makes such a big difference in people's life to actually be part of the financial system for the first time. There's a huge component also of word of mouth marketing, and that naturally leads to a low customer acquisition cost because it goes like a wildfire through these communities. Is that something that works for you as well?
We know that through technology, we can reduce the cost of operating by 80%. And that's what makes us special. And that's what makes us good, that we can use technology to streamline processes and streamline products and make it easier for people to access these type of products. Because we can do it 80% cheaper, we can use those savings in favor of our users. We can use those savings in order to acquire users. And we can use those savings to create better products. That's what we care about. When you have 100 branches, that's a huge cost. We can do things cheaper. And that actually helps that customer acquisition cost to be lower than traditional banks. It allows us to not charge for account maintenance fees. It allows us not to charge you to have an account or open an account or to have a card. It allows us to not charge you for transaction fees. And that incentivizes, again, people to come to Uala. Because if you're not going to charge me to have an account, and if you're not going to charge me to transact, and if you're not going to charge me to transfer money in, and if you're not going to charge me to get a card or replace a card, where other institutions are, because they have higher costs that they have to pay for, then yes, of course, you're going to incentivize. It happened once, I'll tell you, right? I remember this person, it was in Mexico. She was creating, some type of handmade jewelry, whatever, right? And she was new at this, right? She wanted to accept other types of payments besides cash. But then she went into a traditional bank and she said, well, this is how much it's going to cost you to have this account, and you're going to be charged a 1% for this and a 0.5% for that and whatever. And at the end of the game, she looked at this like, wait, I am making $500 and I'm just making up the numbers, right, in profit. And it's going to cost me $500 just to have the money in the system. She does that at Huala. That's the good thing of this, right? That we use technology to include people into the financial ecosystem. And that makes the customer acquisition cost go down significantly.
Clearly, there is growth both in the original business in Argentina, and then you mentioned Mexico and Colombia as well, so regionally.
The whole company, Uala, started in 2017. In Mexico, we landed 2020, I think it was. So we've been growing since then. What we've done in the middle of it, we've actually have a option to buy or a purchase agreement that has to be approved by a local regulator, the central bank, to buy a bank license. We started in 2020, and we started in a way just like Uala as a wallet, and now we're graduating to a banking license. And we did the exact same thing in Argentina. In Argentina, we started as a payment provider, a payment service provider, right, as a wallet. And now, literally in June, we got our bank charter, right? So we got our banking license. The same way, we did an agreement or a purchase agreement with an existing bank, and we went through the regulatory process to get that approved. And June of this year, fortunately, after many, many, many months of processing, we finally got approved to have this banking license as ours. And we're going through the same process in Mexico. In Colombia, actually, we applied organically for a license. So we didn't purchase one. So our first step was going to the regulators and apply for a financial institution license, which we got in January. That's kind of how we've been growing in each country. And in Mexico, we started in a way, and now we're going to a banking service. Again, we're waiting for the regulators to approve. In Argentina, we started in a way, and then we graduated to a banking license, which just got approved. And in Colombia, we started directly with the banking license. And we believe that having a banking license, which is regulated, and a lot of people think, like, do you want to be regulated? Regulations are there to protect people and to protect also businesses. We're not against regulations. We think that it provides a platform and a framework to allow for more financial inclusion if used well and if applied well. And that's what we're doing with our banking licenses, right? What we're doing is growing our range of products and services. in able to provide better interest rates and services like a savings account that through a wallet you weren't able to do, but through a bank license you can actually have a savings account, right, where you can deposit, for example, your salary and have overdraft facilities, a different type of credit which you cannot have in a wallet, for example.
Especially for the lending business, the funding cost should be much more attractive. And so part of that goes into your margin, part of that gets into better rates for your customers.
We want Uala to become the financial ecosystem that allows you to have the financial solutions that you need at every step in your life. You have your first job, deposit your salary at Uala. You open your new shop, you can charge through our point of sale solution. And after you've done that and you want to grow in your business, we can give you a loan. And if you had a motorcycle because you're a delivery guy and you need insurance for that, we can give you the insurance as well. And now you saved some money from your new job, and now we can invest it. So you don't leave it, right there, but now you can invest it in with our brokerage solution in different types of securities and other type of funds.
Both our background is much more on the institutional side. It's different across two dimensions. I think one is the type of customer, and then it's the startup culture versus established financial institutions. How was the transition for you, and how do you manage operations differently in such an entity compared to the institutional business?
I'll give Goldman credit in the sense of they taught me to be very entrepreneurial, very much a go-getter and have a startup kind of personality. So it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. However, yes, you have a certain structure in a traditional place. Certain things you didn't have to take care of. Certain things you were taking for granted. And you had a whole structure behind that you didn't have to think of because it was already thought of and somebody was taking care of it. Here in a startup, well, we're a startup with 1,500 people, right? We're a little bit more than a startup at this point. But regardless, we're always in this everlasting MVP stage. We're always experimenting and always pushing the boundaries and always pushing the envelope in order to provide better services and better products. It takes a little bit more risk-taking appetite than probably in a normal financial institution. And I think that shift is interesting, specifically for people like you and I who were in a place like Goldman, which had a certain appetite for risk, versus here. And you're looking at things at a different way and things you should not take for granted. You don't have, like in other places, thousands and thousands of people with specific expertise that you can call up and say, well, what do you think about this? No, you have to grow your talent and grow the people and learn while you're going. And be smart enough to, again, and humble enough to hire people that are way better than you, because that's what's going to allow you to grow. And we've been very good at that. I have an amazing team. They make my life so easy. I depend on them and they understand where we have to go. They understand what we need. But when we don't have that and we don't have that talent, we look for it. Either we hire it or we retain it in a certain way. That takes a certain degree of humility and to do that, and also to take the risk. So the differences are, for me, number one, the risk appetite. Number two, the structure of things. You have to be willing to do things that probably in your job description are not there, but it's for the greater good. Allows you to learn so much more than before. I'm involved in projects that, if you looked at my job description, I'm the COO of the company. You would say, well, this is not a COO thing. It doesn't matter. I enjoy doing those kind of projects and those kind of activities because I'm learning so much. Even from mergers and acquisitions, right? Which I never was exposed to in, traditional banking, and now I am. We acquired 2 banks in the past year and a half, and we acquired another marketplace company called Empretienda in Argentina, which we're integrating, and it's a solution for our small business owners that they can showcase their products in this marketplace and then sell their products and charge them with our point of sale solutions, right? Just being in the process of activities that somebody else would take care of in traditional places and here you're involved with is great. It's a great learning experience. For me, it's like it's adrenaline to do this.
There's so much that recently happened, as you said, with the banking license in Argentina just in June. That gives some runway for the new products. Given this recent events, would you say like the next 6-9 months, you have a clear view as to all what needs to happen? How certain is the plan in the dynamic environment that you're in?
We have a plan, that's for sure. We know what our OKRs are, our objectives for this year are. We know what our 5-year plan is. That doesn't mean that we're not flexible enough that if something different happens in the market, we can change. We have that flexibility, that versatility to shift quickly if something changes. And that's very important, specifically in Latin America, where a regulation can literally change your business model, and actually happened for us. In December, the Central Bank of Argentina decided that all the float that was coming from wallets, of course, if when you're a wallet, the money of the wallet is in a bank. That money that is in a bank had to have 100% capital reserve. That basically means that you cannot use that money for anything else, not even collect interest on that money. That changes your business model dramatically. And we had to shift and understand what other products we had to monetize sooner and what other products we had to create. So we have a plan for now until the end of the year, because we have our 2022 objectives, we have our 2023 objectives, and we have our 5-year plan, because this is also what our investors, part of our investors are Tencent and SoftBank and Goldman Sachs. So we know that what they are expecting is a 5-year plan to know how we're going to monetize and how we're going to grow and how we're going to become profitable. This is why we're disciplined when it comes to putting goals, setting a path, and being focused on what we have to deliver and how we have to deliver in order to grow.
Yeah, and the timing with the raise was impeccable, right? If you look at some of the more recent valuation rounds, that was pretty good. And hopefully it gives you a long runway across that 5-year plan.
Hats off to our CEO and founder, Pierpaolo Barbieri, a visionary and a brilliant mind who knew exactly when to do the fundraising and how much to do. That is going to give us runway in these turbulent times, right? It's with rates going up and inflation going up. This is not the same scenario that we had a year ago. The war between Russia and Ukraine, gas prices, all of this makes money more expensive. And all of this makes investors more cautious of investing in risky ventures. Hats off to our founder and CEO, because he raised the money at the exact same point where we had to raise it to get our valuation that we had to get, and to provide us runway for for a very long time now.
Thank you very much for the conversation. I find it fascinating the impact a fintech like yours has on society in these markets where it's a large part of the unbanked population. We clearly have that in Asia as well. It's not Hong Kong, Singapore, and Japan. It's more like Vietnam and Cambodia and the Philippines. But it's not like, okay, you get a shinier credit card and people are happy. It's really something that fundamentally changes people's lives. And it's a much more exciting story for them, much more impactful story, and kind of regain a bit the belief in finance to make people's life better. It's fascinating to watch, and it's great you're playing such an essential part of it as well.
Thank you. Those are very kind words. We are proud of our purpose, and we strive to be better at it every step in our way. Our goal is to be able to financially include everybody, because we think that it becomes a more democratic world. And we definitely think that is about providing opportunities to people who haven't had it before that can make economies better. If we give more people the possibility to access finance, they can grow. And I think economies grow, and then countries become better. And it might be cliche and idealistic, but the world will become better. After everything that we've gone through in the past 3-4 years, I think it's time to have a better world, isn't it?
Totally. That's the best final word that we could have. Thanks for that. Nothing to add.